Well, thank you for inviting me. My name is Sarah Vines. I'm the Mobility Services Manager at the Mobility Centre in Carshalton, part of the Queen Elizabeth Foundation. So I'm here today to talk about the Motor Neurone Disease Association's partnership project with Queen Elizabeth Foundation to improve wheelchair services across the South East as part of a national project. It's quite unusual for me to be here at an MNDA meeting. I started to work for the Motor Neurone Disease Association 24 years ago as a care advisor myself. I'd been a physio and I came to join the association. I worked for the association for 2.5 years and then went back into physio. But since then, I have been the tea maker at the East Surrey branch meeting. So I'm very used to branch meetings, but used to making the tea. So thank you. So this started now over 3 years ago, this project. There was some money applied for by the Motor Neurone Disease Association, actually for another purpose, to do something called any qualified provider, which was going to be the new way of revolutionising wheelchair services. And for those of you who've had anything to do with wheelchair services, you will know that there is definitely what they would call a postcode lottery around the country. There's been very, very different levels of funding around the country, and a lot of people have been very unhappy. So there was a project called Any Qualified Provider. Anyway, it didn't end up being the Brave New World, but MNDA, being ever resourceful, knew that there was a really big piece of work to do with this, so to improve wheelchair services, but also specifically because of the nature of motor neurone disease, they knew that there were improvements that they could make specifically to help people. So they went back to the Department of Health and came up with a new innovative project, and this is where we are. So it began with a project that they've been funding for some years at Oxford, and they had an OT, a specialist OT, working at the MND Centre in Oxford. And it may well have been that some of the people you know in this area will have used that centre, because Jenny was trying to provide advice almost nationally. And I know certainly I used to work in Croydon in South London, and clients would use that resource. So to match that, they decided that what they would look at is setting up another couple of OT projects in the country, one up in the north and one down in the south. And Jenny's post has been a real success, and people really saw the value of having a specialist OT available at the clinics who could advise not only on wheelchairs but a whole range of equipment and aids. The other thing Jenny had understood was that for a lot of people with motor neurone disease, when they went to the wheelchair services, they might wait a long time, which was not appropriate, but also that they would end up with this equipment that wouldn't necessarily have met their needs. And also that the criteria, the dreaded criteria, would come in and go, well, you haven't got quite the right access, or you wouldn't have quite the right list, so therefore people wouldn't be given the equipment when they needed it. So Jenny had a lot of time to have a lot of thought, had a lot of experience with people with motor neurone disease, and had devised really a set of a prescription, if you like, of a piece of equipment that really would hopefully be something that someone could, as their first wheelchair, could have something that then would really meet their needs for a long period of time, even if their needs changed, that this chair would still meet their needs. So they wanted to build on this project. So hence, this is where the NHS's money was invested. So Jenny had been working since 2007. She'd already set up this holistic assessment centre, and she was also providing a lot of training. So from there, they went to Leeds, and they created a partnership with the Wheelchair Service in Leeds in 2013. And they had a full-time person based in Leeds Wheelchair Service who was really there to develop the service, but also to build relationships with other wheelchair services so that they could share the good news, the good practice. And often people are quite nervous about new things and new ways of doing things. So the idea is to build the confidence in other therapists so that they could carry on this good work. So in the end of 2013, the Motor Neurone Disease Association were desperately looking for a base in the south. And they had a meeting up in London with the wheelchair services in London. I was still managing the wheelchair service in London at the time. And they were looking for a host organisation. and nothing really was forthcoming. It wasn't particularly easy in the NHS at that time. People were a little bit wary about how we're going to staff things. They were struggling to staff the work they already had, so new projects were a little bit frightening. And it just coincided with the time that I decided to leave the NHS after being a wheelchair service manager for 9 years and go to work for another charity. And my boss, who was very, very open-minded and had a lot of faith, I think unknowingly at the time didn't know what he was taking on. But I said to him, "Chen, it's a really good project. I think I haven't started working for you yet, but I think we could do this really well." So I approached most universities and said, "I'm going to QEF. I think we can do it." So we didn't do it in the NHS. We did it as a partnership between two charities. I have to say it's probably been the most successful thing I've done in my 2.5 years at QEF. And obviously I had a long background with the Motor Neurone Disease Association. I knew it was a very professional organisation. I knew we could make something happen together. So in 2014 we started up the project. We employed a therapist, just one therapist to start with, who was covering, when I say the South East, every London borough, the whole of Kent, the whole of Surrey, the whole of Sussex and down to Hampshire, and working with every one of the wheelchair services to embed this project that Jenny had created up in Oxford with all of the services. So saying to them, if someone with motor neurone disease comes to you, they need to be seen quickly, they need to get the right equipment at the right time, and I'm going to work with you to do that. The big advantage of this project was that there was some money for equipment. So there was some money for the Motor Neurone Disease Association to start to help make things happen. So often what we would do is if someone was on a waiting list, Fiona would go and assess them, and then what she would do is if the wheelchair service said, well, that's going to be 12 weeks from us, Fiona had the funds to hire a chair, the equivalent chair, in the interim so that person didn't do without. Or we could loan something to that person so that they didn't do without. And really, to begin with, that was what happened a lot. We were loaning and hiring a lot of equipment. What's happened over the last 2 years of working, as I said, with Leeds and in Oxford, working with wheelchair services, what's happened is the influence has happened. And now we're finding it's very, on the whole, equipment is not the issue. Unfortunately, things have changed slightly in the NHS over the last couple of years. And it's not the equipment that's the issue, but it's having enough staff in the NHS to actually, specialist staff, to get out there and assess quickly now. So the need for the project has remained. It has shifted a little. What it was also done, and Fiona's done a lot of training, and I think some of the association visitors from your branch have been, we were saying, to mobility. We've been doing training with professionals, but also with association volunteers, and also so that people are equipped with as much information as they can to make referrals nice and early to the wheelchair services, but also to be able to signpost people to know what they're entitled to and what's out there. That's how we started at QEF, and I think one of the reasons that we found it so successful at QEF is really because it very much complements the other services we provide. So I keep talking about QEF and the mobility service, and some of you, I don't know if you can see that, it's not very good. I know this is a photo. And what do we do there? The reason I show you this is because this is an old NHS building. This is what was 2 hospital wards on the old Queen Mary's site. If anybody who knows South London, there used to be a huge children's hospital in Carsham. We have the last 2 wards of that. And from our centre, this is our assessment area. For those of you who've been there, we've got a huge demonstration area with vehicles inside, with wheelchairs, with scooters. We've got part of an airline fuselage. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. But one of the other things we also have is a private track. So one of the reasons this venue was such a useful thing for this project was we could provide not just the wheelchair assessment part of mobility assessment, and we all know that your wheelchair is just part of your mobility. It's then how do you get into the car? How do you get onto the bus? How, if you want to go on holiday, how do you travel? And what the Mobility Centre does is that provides that wraparound service. So this partnership with the motor neuron disease was fantastic. We had a specialist wheelchair therapist alongside our range of other professionals who could provide advice on vehicles, on continuing to drive, on how you get on and off an aeroplane, and an environment where you could try that in a nice, safe environment. The other thing we've been able to do there, and since we've been doing the project, we've held various events, but two quite large events in conjunction with the Motor Neuron Disease Association. One was a launch where we had 100 people came to the centre, people with motor neuron disease, therapists. But we've also had a big day, and this is building on the project, about communication aids and augmentative communication. And we held a day there where we had a whole range of speech therapists and talked about the Motor Neuron Disease Association's work about improving access to communication aid equipment. So we've been able to do a lot of things in partnership there. What do we continue to do in this project? So we continue to work with wheelchair assessments. Where the therapists in the services can't provide a timely assessment, we provide a timely assessment, and then we provide our recommendations to the wheelchair service, and then they will often just pick that work up. And all credit to Fiona, because of her personality and because of her professionalism, she's built amazing links with the wheelchair service. So there's a lot of trust between our project and the NHS, which is always good. We cover the London care centres, so up until recently Fiona had been attending the King's College Hospital M&D care centre every week, and Lynn Hills, who's our other therapist, attends the clinic at Queen Square every week. And so they're at the point of contact at the clinic, and anybody who goes there who wants information or advice about wheelchairs can see one of our therapists. So that happened, and so all of the people, so I'm not sure where people go from this area, but we're covering those two centres, and that seems to be really popular provision. So I mentioned the neuro chair several times, and this was really down to Jenny at Oxford. So what is a neuro chair? Well, unfortunately, these are big pieces of equipment, and I couldn't put one in my car today and bring, because I think really it's best to see one. What Jenny did was, Jenny looked at the three main manufacturers who provide most of the powered wheelchairs into the UK. And that's Invacare, Otterbock and Sunrise. And what she said to them, the challenge she put to them is two things. One is, can you put together a chair? And all these chairs are modular, so there's lots of opportunities to change them. Can you come up with a chair that one will meet the needs of people with M&D right from the point of view when they first need a chair to maybe later on when they need more support? But equally, can you provide it to the NHS at a price where they will readily be able to buy it? And that was the challenge Jenny put to the three manufacturers. And in fact, on the whole, that has worked. So she's come up with a specification that one, that when you put it together, it actually does meet people's needs for a much greater period during their condition. But also, she's negotiated the prices down, and for all the extra parts that often we used to be charged huge amounts more for. So you'd have a basic chair, but they tell, but then if you add a headrest, it's hundreds of pounds more. She packaged it all together, and actually it's come together. And there's quite a lot of evidence now, and I don't have the figures to me, that they've actually saved the NHS a huge amount of money. And actually, the project was nominated for a Health Service Journal Award for that purpose. It didn't win, unfortunately, last year, but it was nominated and shortlisted. So that was a real honour for the project. So there's actually been some cost savings, but also massive improvements to people with motor neuron disease. All of these chairs are available at the Mobility Centre whenever anybody comes. So that was one of the other advantages of using the Mobility Centre, because we had the space to have these chairs there and then be able to demonstrate those. So one of the things that's been going longer than I've been involved at the Mobility Centre, we've always had a small fleet of hire vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles, that are available specifically to people with motor neurone disease to hire on a longer term basis to enable them to have access to that type of vehicle when they need it. And that's still going. There are some challenges with that now because the chairs are getting bigger and the vehicles are needing to be bigger, and that doesn't always meet everybody's needs, but that is still available. We have all 3 chairs, the Neuro chairs, available to look at. But on top of that, we have a wide range of other chairs. So not everybody needs a power chair, not everybody wants a power chair. We have manual chairs, from the lightest folding wheelchairs to pop in the boot, to manual chairs with power packs. We have scooters, we have boot hoists, we have accessible vehicles, we have all sorts of devices that allow you to get in and out of your car. We have a whole range of equipment. We do driving assessments. Now, this isn't necessary for everybody with motor neurone disease, but some people do use that service, so we can assess whether people are able to continue to drive, but equally, is there any equipment that would enable that to happen in the right circumstances? However, one of the things that we do have is something called the R&R, which is a service where people donate equipment that they don't want, scooters and wheelchairs. We recycle them and recondition them, and then we resell those at a very subsidised rate. And that's been hugely popular. So that people who want to have a piece of equipment that's their own, or maybe they want to buy something that they're going to take on holiday, or even if they want to do a long-term hire, through our shop mobility at Sutton you're able to do that. Equally, if people wanted to donate equipment, they can collect from anywhere within the M25. And I've got leaflets about all of these things. We have an airline fuselage. It was the training fuselage from Bournemouth Airport. What it enables us to do is, for many people who've got an acquired disability, flying is a very, very scary prospect. The getting on and off of planes is not the easiest thing anyway. But if you now need more help with your mobility, sometimes it's the sort of thing that will really put you off having a holiday. So what we have is an assessment service then, where we assess children and adults, and we look at the whole thing. We'll discuss the whole journey with you, from leaving home, from how you might get to the airport, what will happen to you at the airport. You know, if you're in a wheelchair, your wheelchair is going to be swapped. All those things, all the things that might happen to you in the course of your journey, we can talk about, and then we can talk about the practicalities of getting in and out of the seat, where you might have to sit, what's going to happen with your wheelchair, all of those things. And someone can come and have an assessment and hopefully go away feeling much more confident. We can also tell you what you need to tell to your airline that will then mean that hopefully you'll have a really relaxed and enjoyable journey. I'll show you a picture of that later. And the other thing that QEF has from our service in Leatherhead is we have a canal boat, and we have 2 holiday homes down on the south coast, and these are fully accessible holiday homes. So as part of the charity, we hire a canal boat. When we did the launch of this project several years ago, a lot of people were very interested. People are really enthusiastic about canal boats, and to be able to have a fully accessible canal boat and we've had several people from people with motor neurone disease who've used the boat since we did the launch. I don't know if you can see that, they're very small, but that's our fuselage and some of our equipment. And just like the Motor Neurone Disease Association, we rely heavily on our volunteers. So this is James, and this is James who is reconditioning one of our donated scooters. James is a scooter user himself, so he understands exactly what it is that what people, how people feel about equipment. And we recondition both scooters and wheelchairs, and people have found that very, very useful. So we can do a whole range of things. We're still continuing to provide us advice, support. We'll provide training. Fiona's done several sessions for the association this house. We can assess the prescriber, and we've got links to the care centre. So the important thing for everybody here is how do you access that service? You can either have a phone call or an email. People will get seen at the clinic, and we will do joint assessments with other people. So the Queen Elizabeth Foundation, and I've got all the information here, you can call us directly, or I've left the email of Lynn, who's our therapist at the moment. I explained to you a little bit earlier that Fiona, who's been our therapist for 2 years, has left. QEF have decided that we will employ, instead of having someone part-time, which was, to have someone full-time, and we're creating a specialist neuro wheelchair therapy post. So because of the benefit we've seen to people with motor neuron disease, we think we can increase that benefit to people with other conditions. So we will still cover the project in its entirety once we recruit, but equally that person will be able to do more days to enable us to spread that to support more people with different conditions. Which I think. So Lynn is our specialist OT who's still with us, and I'll be able to give you an update hopefully very shortly. That job is out for ad, and hopefully we'll recruit very, very shortly and have someone in post who you can maybe invite another time. So that is me, a bit of a whirlwind tour, I hope that's okay, tour of the project.